Hi everyone, Boomer here and welcome back to Let's Play Star Trek Online. You can see I am currently on Vulcan looking at the Leonard Nimoy Memorial. I think that they've done a pretty spectacular job overall with it. I think that a very nice way to send off Leonard Nimoy, and I can't type, it looks like. That was going to be so cool at one point. Oh well. Let's do this the old-fashioned way, shall we? There you go. But that's not going to be the reason for this video. Recently, there's been a super big change in the way the game is. We have had a major patch which has cut out a lot of the quote-unquote exploits that were being used in the game. The biggest one was being I'll just respond here. And the biggest one was that the old style plasma doping, which was basically, if you looked at your ship, you'd fill these science consoles with the plasma generating weapon signal nullifiers, and you'd have 4 plus beam consoles down here, and because these procced incorrectly or weren't working as intended, you would get a absolutely monstrous boost to your damage. The game has been lagging quite a bit recently, and so DPS scores aren't going to be as high as normal, but when plasma doping was around, the top DPSs were doing sort of 180k, somewhere around there, and since this patch has come in, only one person, that's Ryan STO, has broke 100k. So you can sort of see how that has had a super big effect on people's DPS. So what they decided to do with the DPS whatever channels was you would have to re-qualify if you were in the 30k damage or above channel, which was a bit of a pain for me because my DPS at the time was like 30.7, I think was the highest mine got up to, so I was only just in the channel as it was. I wasn't running a full dope build, but I am still a science captain in a science ship, and therefore I'm not at the same advantage that a tactical captain is. However, you know, let it never be said that I want to give up easily, and I decided to take the Vesta, the Rainmaker that I introduced to you in the last episode, take it out as best I can. Unfortunately, there are some pieces of kit which I still don't have. You can actually see here I have started crafting the game's quote-unquote god weapons, but I don't quite have them ready yet. So I had to go with my dual protonic Polaron build. However, the one thing I could do fairly quickly was I actually bought in the last run, along with the Vesta, I bought a Phantom, and I also bought a Presido, the tactical command ship. And the reason I bought those are for the traits that they give you. The 2 traits in specific are Reciprocity, which is when you're missed, 10% recharge time on all intelligence and tactical bridge officer abilities, and the other one, which is the Presido trait, which is all hands on deck. These 2 traits are by far the most powerful traits in the game, I think, at the moment. All hands on deck is whenever you activate a tactical or command bridge officer ability, you get 10% recharge time on your captain abilities and 5% recharge time, on your science officer abilities, and more importantly 5% recharge time on your captain abilities. Now your captain abilities are the ones that you get just from being a class. and those ones are going to be sensor scan, subnucleonic beam, and scattering field. Usually, if you're a science captain, sensor scan is a huge buff to DPS, so you really want that. You also get your fleets. I think they're counted captain abilities as well, so they get a big recharge time as well. It's basically just ridiculously good. Getting to cool those down, and obviously with reciprocity your tactical abilities cool down quicker, so you're recharging your attack pattern beta and fire at wills quicker, and then you are then using that to charge down these quicker, and it just basically creates this huge snowball where you start doing just utterly ridiculous damage. There's a couple of other things that I have done in order to get my traits up. I'll show you a couple of the new things that I have given. The first one is Beam Barrage. That gives you a, if I hover over Fire at Will here, it gives you a plus 2% to all damage whenever you activate a weapon enhancement ability, or a beam enhancement ability. So when you do Fire at Will, you get a 2% buff to your damage on top of the buff that Fire at Will already does. What are the other ones I'm using? I am using Particle Manipulator. This is the Science R&D trait, which is incredible. If you're going to build this build, you really need to get this. It is gain 25% of your particle generator skills as crit chance on exotic damage. My particle generators aren't particularly high. They're only about 225, so when I use the quantum singularity manipulation, they go up to 325. But that's enough to give me sort of between 50 and 60% critical hit chance when using exotic damage, which is just, you know, it's pretty obvious to say that's ridiculous. Gravity Well just crits constantly, and additionally, because of my buff layout, I often get a second Grav Well, and that starts critting as well, and you get the idea. I also have Positive Feedback Loop, which is after using a hull or shield heal, I get plus 10% exotic damage. After using exotic damage, plus 10% increase hull or shielding. So with the fact I've got emergency power to shields, because it's still a Drake style build, I just don't have the cooldowns on these. Emergency power to shields just gives me 10% exotic damage. When I use the Grab Well, I hit another heal, which gives me more exotic damage, and then I use another one of my abilities, which I'll show you later, to just do incredibly huge damage. The rest of them you've seen before. I've mainly taken out traits that add to defense, because even though I'm pretty high DPS now, in terms of, certainly for a science captain, it is I'm still not going to be able to compete with like good tactical captains in scimitars. So we might as well have a look at how I've kitted the Rainmaker out. This is a build that I found. Again, this is very similar to a build I found on Reddit. What makes it a little bit different to the build I found is that I haven't been able, as I said, to get the dual beam cans, and the build I saw on Reddit was also a slightly older build, so there was no secondary deflector, and she was using the assimilated engines and shields. I think that was mainly for tankiness, because science vessels do have a tendency to explode if you're not careful with them, so it's just the way you have to think about it. But it's a little bit of a change, but the principle remains the same. The bridge officer layout's the same and everything like that. So we start off with the same weapons that I had on the South Elm. They're the Crit D ×2 Protonic Polaron Beam Arrays. I've not upgraded rarity or anything like that. They just are what they are. Then we come to this, which is the Counter Command Deflector Array. It really was a toss-up between this and the Solnay Array, but I just decided that because this gives you the energy weapon training and it gives you the particle generator as well, this is probably just better than the Solnay Deflector. It's close on both of them. I wouldn't blame anyone to take either of them, but the Counter Command Deflector seems to be where most people are going. But I wouldn't be upset if I had the Solnay Deflector here. Fairly standard, you've seen this before, the Nukara Impulse Engines and the Nukara Crystalline Shield for the two-piece Nukara set. That gives you plus 2.5% weapon damage, and that's right across the board. So, you know, that's right at the top of the tier, so that applies after you've done all your other modifiers, so it's just a straight up damage buff. Brand new warp core. This is an elite fleet plasma integrated warp core. The main important thing to look at on this is the AMP. The AMP modifier, which is plus 3.3%. Oh, it's actually plus 4.2% all weapon damage for each subsystem with 75 or more power. Sure, that was 3.3. What the heck's happened there? It must be something to do. Oh, I know why. It's because I've got pedal to the metal now, which is another trait which I'll come back to very shortly. So it actually buffs it even higher. But again, this is running an AMP warp core, so it's basically your standard DPS layout for the most part. Two-piece assimilated. I've got the kinetic cutting beam and the assimilated console, both at Mark 14. Plasmonic leech, because duh, you basically have to have a plasmonic leech in a high DPS build. And now we get on to the fun bits, because I've got some quite funky consoles in the science console area. The first thing is the Universal Constriction Anchor, and this is something that you have to have if you are running an exotic build. It's actually pretty cheap at the moment on the exchange, or at least it was the last time I checked. It might not be now because people are beginning to figure it out, but you certainly can get this for non-ridiculous amounts of money at the moment. The main thing you're interested in, it is a hold. So it does have it. If you haven't got a grav well up, you can just use this as an emergency, but usually you'll have grav well up. And it does it adds 23.7% bonus to your exotic damage, which, you know, that's why you have it. It's huge. This is the I have money console, or I used to have money console. It's a exotic particle field exciter with the flow modifier. The particle Gen X ones are more expensive, but flow is still very expensive. Big buff to flow capacitors and particle generator, big buff to your shield capacity, and whenever a shield is healed you get plus 10 weapon power. So that's whenever you do emergency power to shields, or whenever you use transfer shield strength 2, which I have down here, or even if you just use your biomolecular shield generator to heal your shields, you get a 10 buff to your weapons power. So again, we're keeping our weapon power as high as possible. That's what we're trying to do with this build. Lobby console here, I have it's basically 22.5% critical severity, 25 to ship hit points, and it also does improve hold and disable. Bigger grav wells, we like these. I have one particle generating science console because it's always useful to have one of these, and it does buff my exotic damage. And then the Vesta's party piece. If you don't have a Vesta, I would use probably the tachyokinetic console here, but because I've got a Vesta, I am going to use this, which is the quantum field focus controller. It is a really big dirty phaser attack. If you do the quote-unquote science alpha strike, which is basically sensor analysis, sensor scan, quantum cloak, and fire this along with probably fire at will and tactical team and emergency power to weapons, if you fire all those off at once with 125 weapon power and crit with this thing, you are going to be doing absolutely insane damage. I am talking, you know, I've seen numbers for this that have been as high as 400,000 for one shot. Now that's obviously over 12 seconds, but that's still 40 odd, you know, that's still 40 odd K DPS, or between 35 and 40k DPS, and that's from one weapon. All of your other stuff can fire. The only issue I have with it at the moment is that because I don't have the super cool, like, you know, because I don't have the these equipped at the moment, I have to play a slightly broadsiding game, but I still want to be head-on to use this because it has a super narrow, like, focus beam. So, you know, I know where I can get more out of this shit, put it that way. That's where I would get more. But for the moment, I'm still using this because this is kind of the gimmick, and when you use it, especially in ISA, if you're on the gateway, which has no shields, and you alpha strike it on that, the gateway just melts. and that's something that'll make people very, very happy. Either the gateway or the tactical cube is generally what that gets used on, because you get the full effect from that. Tactical consoles, I've just got 4 Polaron vulnerability locators at Mark 14, one of which did go epic on me, which I was very happy with. The other ones I'm just going to have to pump Omegas into, and the hangar I'm using Elite Scorpions. In terms of my bits and pieces, my hull is 55k. As I said, science ships tend to have hulls made of paper. They're just generally not that great in terms of taking damage on their hull. You just have to deal with it. On the upside, it is far more manoeuvrable than the Sarthel. Shields are pretty big. My resistances are really low because I'm going for DPS in this thing. Crit chance 19, crit severity 109. And there you go, 225 particle generators. So the reason I decided to make this video showing off the Rainmaker now is because with the reset, not too many people have hit 30k DPS again after the reset. Now, some of that is due to lag, I have to admit. There is quite a bit of that which is due to lag. Because ISA has been lagging like just horrendously recently. The one last thing I thought needed to show you was this. This is the pedal to the metal trait, which is you get a 1% damage bonus per 2 seconds that you spend at full throttle. So, and it stacks up to 10 times, so yeah, you can see pedal to the metal with 10 stacks on it. Ridiculous, absolutely insane. So basically, oh, I suppose I should show the bridge officer layout, shouldn't I? It's fairly standard for a Drake build. 2 copies of Beam Array Fire at Will, 1 and 3. 2 copies of Attack Pattern Beta, Attack Team 1. This is an Ensign Universal. It can be pretty much whatever you want. I've decided to use Engineering Team just for the buff and the ability to get rid. You can put Science Team if you want to shield tank a bit more. It's really your choice. You just really want to heal there more than anything else. I didn't want to put a tactical officer there because even though I get 2% extra crit out of it, I think I need the heal a little bit more. Standard Drake here, emergency power to weapons and shields, and my science abilities are Hazard Emitters 1, Transfer Shield Strength 2, Gravwell 3, and one that might surprise you, which is Energy Siphon 2. The reason that Energy Siphon 2 is in here is for multiple different reasons. Number one, it's a deflector ability, and we're using deflector officers to cool down our deflectors. Secondly, it's a deflector ability that doesn't have a matching cooldown with Gravwell, and this is something that, because in my previous version of the Sarthel, you'll remember that I had Tychon's Rift there. Tychon's Rift has a shared cooldown with Gravity Well 3, and that can cause problems when you need a Gravwell. So overall, I felt, or you know, from testing and what was put up on Reddit, etc., by Pew Pew Lasers, I think that this is probably right, because this makes sure that your amp is off for all 4 of your abilities, so you're doing max damage there, and it also means that your Gravwell isn't going to be caught on a shared cooldown, which is rather important. And as far as duty officer goes, I've got a con officer who has a reduced time for tactical team, and he does also do a buff as well. So if he buffs your attack patterns when he gives your attack patterns plus 10 when you when he activates whenever you use tactical team. So buffs up those things, which is really cool. Warp Core Engineer, which is part of any standard Drake attempt to do, just give you another power buff. 3 deflector officers for the cooldown, and 1 gravimetric scientist for an aftershock gravity well. So we have the makings of a pretty powerful ship going on there. But the reason I did this video was that not many people have passed over 30k due to sort of lag and the way things have changed. However, it's time for a bit of smug self-indulgence, because this is, unfortunately I didn't record it, but this is a record of a pass that I did about an hour ago. This was when I finally got all the traits up and I thought, let's go for it. Went for it, and there you can see 37,000 DPS, which at the moment I believe in the league table, which is not going to show up, is it, at the moment? So if I add add this. This is the league table here, as it currently stands in Static Online. You can see, there you go, I wasn't lying, there's one person who's at 104k, but there have been, as I said, there have been quite a few, there has been quite a lot of lag going on. But I believe my 37k puts me at yeah, my 37k puts me at rank 258, which is, as we speak, which I think for a Psi officer flying a T5U ship, it's not even tier 6, it doesn't have a trait of its own. I don't think that's bad at all, to tell you the truth. A few things did go my way in this. First of all, I didn't die, which is always a bonus. I will say something did go against me. I got a lot, and I mean a lot, of rubber band lag at the start of it. So I think that there's definitely room for improvement. I think this is a 40k build. Just to show you what did most of the damage, you can see Protonic Polaron Array. Because I just have Fire at Will 3 up pretty much constantly because of reciprocity, it's just throwing out damage. Like Gravwell 3 is doing a lot of damage. I actually did a Crystalline Catastrophe run recently. If I can find it, yeah, I did a Crystalline Catastrophe run. There you go, 23k in Crystalline Catastrophe, and out of that 23k, 6 of it was my Gravwells, because there's one Gravwell down here which is for the side Gravwells. So, you know, I was doing more damage. If we have a look at the actual thing here, how many people have we got? We've only got one person. Now, this isn't entirely accurate due to the size of the crystalline map, but if this is accurate, my Gravwells alone were doing more damage than 80% of the raid. But I don't think that that is entirely accurate. But you can see how things do sort of major damage. We just examine a bit more. You can see my pets are going to be my major damage dealers. You can see there 13k in pets. Now, the reason that my pets did so much damage on this, you can see the Quantum Field Focuser 319k damage. That was 2 shots. So you can see, you know, it's kind of a cool numbers kind of thing, but it does work quite nicely. What happened was that I managed to take a core breach properly. In other words, I didn't die from it, but it did take me down to 50% health, and that allowed me to summon the Typhoon, the fleet support, and that Typhoon did 7k DPS on its own. So what I'm going to do next is level my command ability so I can get the trait where you can summon it without being damaged, and then it's just like, look at me with my 15k worth of pets. There's not really too much else to go into as far as that goes, but you can see this was a good run because this was done in the 10k DPS channel, and so everyone's doing decent DPS. Everyone knows what they're, you know, everyone knows to have attack pattern beta and all the rest of it equipped. So we are, you know, we got the right debuffs, we got a decent team knowing what they're doing, and this is the result. So what I am going to try and do, I want to push this build further. I want to push this to, I think this build is capable of 50k. I really do. Even if I have to go this route, the anti-proton beam route, and have to get a recluse on the team or something like that to get my APB up, I really think that this ship is capable of 10k DPS. Sorry, 10k. This ship is really capable of 50k DPS. So, sure, yeah, I'll do a Tal'Dawar mission just so you can get an idea of what I want to do, and you'll be able to see things ticking down properly. So let's just go to the Japori system. I've been spending quite a lot of time over here recently, just leveling up my traits as much as possible. I'll be leveling up command next. The other thing I've been doing is, yeah, otherwise known as late game craft grinding. That's pretty much what I've been doing. Basically, this is how you make money easily in the end game. Okie dokie, launch fighters. Screw it, let's just go. Burn, damn it, burn! Oh, I got it. See how my grab well was back immediately there. And the great thing is the Vesta's speed means that it can do that. It is quick enough to dodge incoming fire, so should have used fire at will 3 there, not fire at will 1, but hey, this is just so you guys can get the idea. Material burst over here, sensor scans back up, so hit it. That was a mess. Grab well again, fire well 3 meter, and that should be everything down. And you can and that's sort of where the advantage, got 4 amps as well, that's where the advantage of the, yeah, not now. That's where the advantage of all hands on deck comes in, because that was an incredibly short fight. I mean, we're talking, what was that, 90 seconds, something along those lines? And in that 90 seconds I got my grab well back 3 times. And so it was just easy, you know, it just makes it so much easier the way that the build is going at the moment. Still, that's it for this episode, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoy seeing some science going towards the top of the DPS tables. And hopefully we'll be able to continue. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.